This is E&P Reports from Editor and Publisher Magazine, the authoritative voice of news media since 1884, serving newspapers, broadcasts, digital, and all multimedia news publishing. And hi, welcome once again. I'm Mike Blinder, publisher of E&P Magazine. If you are listening to this program on a podcast platform, please follow us. Watching us on YouTube, hit the subscribe button below me, smash the bell to the right. You'll get an update each and every time we put a new episode of E&P Reports out. Today, I am honored to have as my guest a one-on-one with Nicole Carroll, president of news and editor-in-chief of USA Today. Hello, Nicole.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Congratulations on a number of things. Number one, 40 years. This is why we reached out to you at USA Today. You just recently celebrated a 40-year anniversary at USA Today. By no means am I suggesting that you personally have been there for 40 years, but that had to be pretty exciting for you.
Super exciting. We were able to talk to many of the founders who were here 40 years ago and just talk about how they created something really special against all odds. And I know we'll get more into that, but just think back 40 years ago. You know, this was very traditional journalism, less color, less graphics. We came out with short, accessible stories, and we really changed the industry.
Oh, at big time. And I loved, there was a great video you guys put out that I actually watched at the International Newspaper Group convention when I was speaking there. And Wayne Pelland, your VP of Operations, and I watched it together, and he was bragging about this is big news because 40 years ago, you guys were just inventing it as you went. But I also want to talk to you about your perspective on the media industry as well, because of course, you had almost 2 decades at the Arizona Republic. You and your team got a Pulitzer for a great piece on the wall. And right now you're in charge of this national brand. So with your permission, Nicole, we're going to chat about your work at USA Today and its 40-year heritage, along with your perspective on the industry today. And we'll do that on the backside of this message.
Sounds great.
This episode of E&P Reports is sponsored by IQ Audience Plus by Town News. Consumer revenue has never been more important. Digital leaders at media organizations worldwide are asking the same question. How do we accelerate the growth of consumer revenue? Traditional one-size-fits-all paywalls aren't the answer. They're blunt instruments that treat all visitors the same way, costing you money. IQ Audience Plus by Town News is a smart, dynamic metering solution that empowers you to maximize revenue by identifying key audiences, seeding engagement, and growing membership and subscriptions. Ready to supercharge your consumer revenue, grow engagement, and bolster your advertising income? Visit townnews.com/EP today to learn more about IQ Audience Plus by Town News.
Okay, Nicole, first, before we get into USA Today, let's talk a little bit about, at the time of this recording, you're currently managing reporters all over, correct? I mean, how is USA Today handling Ian? I mean, when a crisis like this happens, do you prepare in advance? Do you do it as you go? I mean, thank you for carving out this time, but at the time of this recording, Ian is still a major story in some of the markets where you have embedded people, correct?
Right. We have 18 daily operations in Florida, including Fort Myers and Naples, which took the brunt of the storm. Of course, the storm is still happening right now and working its way up the coast. But we've, again, got, reporters, editors, production people in Fort Myers, in Naples, in Sarasota, that are out there doing the job. They're trying to bring news to the people. At the same time, they don't know what the state of their own homes are. As the water recedes, they're just now getting back into their homes. We know for sure that 3 of our journalists have homes that are not habitable.
Wow.
That number may increase as more get back in there. So of course, as a company, we're pulling together to support them. But I have to tell you how amazing these journalists are. I got to interview several of them yesterday to find out how they were doing. They weathered the storm. They said it was terrifying overnight, but daylight came and they could not wait to get back out there and start, helping their community. And that has been their focus. It's really extraordinary if you think about it. They planned to have a meeting in a hotel. They knew they were all going to lose power. So they said, let's meet at noon at this hotel inland. They got to the hotel was out of power. So they had their planning meeting in the parking lot. And so we've got pictures of them in the parking lot, just standing there, putting out assignments and trying to get organized. So Journalists are a special breed. And I also want to make sure we call out our production folks, who many of them spent the night in our press facilities with their families to make sure that they could run the papers and deliver the papers as soon as it was safe.
Well, let's talk about that. You're managing. We at E&P like to think that there are newspapers, and many that are from very small markets that are listening to this broadcast up to big markets, and then there are national brands. USA Today, maybe I'm wrong, we peg you as a national brand. You are more than a newspaper. You are a destination, like a CNN or a Wall Street Journal. What is the hierarchy? What is the newsroom like today? How do you manage all this? Because you have all these multiple markets, and they all contribute, of course, do they not? And how do you run the whole thing? How is the journalism done at USA Today?
I appreciate you asking that. I don't think it as much as the hierarchy as a partnership. So we have more than 200 daily operations out there. And of course, we have USA Today. So we're constantly in chats talking about things. So on a daily basis, we have an Ian chat. And you were asked when we started. They actually started this Ian chat more than a week ago, when this was just a tropical depression forming out there, in the Caribbean. Our people were watching it and getting ready for it. So everybody in the company who is impacted can join an Ian chat, and that's how we communicate. But we also do that just on topical issues. You take one step up, and we have a group around education, around healthcare, around immigration, around politics. We have cross teams for college sports, for NFL sports. So even though we're very large, we've got this national group, and we're in small cities and big cities, and of course in Washington, D.C., in London, in New York, and L.A. We organize ourselves by staying in constant contact, either through topics or through breaking news stories that are happening. Every single day, we're talking to each other. We're comparing notes. We're saying out loud, okay, this person's in charge. They're going to take the lead on this story. Let's all follow them. Because as you can imagine, there's a lot of things going on. So we have to be very clear in our communication about how things are going to go.
We at E&P have been doing a lot of reporting lately on news bias. And the cover this month for October is pretty provocative. We're talking about actual blatant lying, where Rob Torno from the Philadelphia Inquirer did a very in-depth piece on how some right-wing media positions itself and just perpetuate. I'm not asking you to comment on that, okay? I'm just saying this is what we're doing. But in the world of what, and some people call it the echo chambers of cable news, I don't know. And I'm going to preface this question by telling you, in this very program, I had the Minneapolis Star Tribune editorial team right after they covered, the Floyd incident, and they eventually won a Pulitzer. And I asked them how they reported and kept their head in the game during a pandemic with all the cable news out there. And their exact words were, we don't watch cable news. What's cable news? Where do you position, and you can say whatever you want on this, the USA Today brand in that ecosystem today, at least in your opinion?
Right. I mean, it's not even just my opinion. If you look at academic studies out there, they've got all the charts, and you see us right in the center. And it doesn't mean that we don't do hard stories or take tough positions with our editorial pages. It means that we're open to a diversity of opinion, that we're going to fact check things, we're going to spread truth, we're going to make sure that we're putting out facts and let people make up their own minds. So I'm really pleased at our positioning, because I think that gives us a bigger audience and a bigger opportunity to inform people. If they trust you, they'll listen to you, even if the news you're delivering is not to their liking.
Well, one of the things I love about this industry is, when I say this industry, I mean the news publishing industry, with its roots, God forbid I say the word paper, right? Newspaper, is that we do tend to be a little bit better at separating opinion from news. Do you agree? And I see USA Today still does that, correct?
We do. And in fact, we built it into our product. So now, we have the different colors that are USA Today is known for. Opinion has its own color. We have a band across the top of every opinion article that in a bright yellow that says this is opinion. I mean, we went overboard as much as we could to point out that this is opinion. It still may not make a difference to some people, but at least we feel we're doing our job in being transparent.
And you have some wonderful contributors on this very program. We had Rex Hupke. By the way, I don't know if you're going to beat him for audience. That was our biggest downloads.
No one can beat Rex for audience. He's amazing.
He's amazing, and the way his mind works. And we caught him just after the week he started, and a war broke out in Europe. And his perspective is wonderful. But let's go in the past for a second. I'm not saying you've been there for 40 years, but you've been in the industry a few years like me. 40 years of news publishing. Imagine the stories that appear on the front pages in those decades. Do any of those resonate with you when you look back, and especially with USA Today readers over the years? Are any of them one or two or three things that come out of that newsroom just resonate with you?
I think about, well, first of all, I was at USA Today as a loaner 25 years ago. So when I was in El Paso, that was the Gannett newspaper. And as you know, USA Today was founded by all the Gannett papers loaning reporters to USA Today. That's how we were able to create.
You were a loaner. Okay.
It's called loaners. And so all the papers would loan reporters to USA Today, and you would work in 3 or 6 month shifts, then you'd go back to your home paper, and it was great cross training. So I actually was there 25 years ago. So, I was there for a lot of its history. I think about that first day. I think about that iconic cover with Princess Grace's death. And I think about the plane crash, and the headline talked about how many survived. Hundreds survived, and dozens died. So I think that was just very USA Today, that, they knew that Princess Grace was very, very popular and dear to many people. And back then, that may not have made the front pages of other papers, but our editors were just in tune with what America was talking about. And then, of course, the plane crash, you're covering breaking news, but I love that they focused on, the survivors, because that really was a miracle. So I think from our beginning, they set the tone for, putting out the information that we knew people wanted and needed, and putting it out in a way that was accessible. We always say that we're expert, not elitist. And we really tried. Yeah.
There's the pull quote right there. Okay, go ahead.
We are expert, not elitist. And we're here to be accessible and to inform everyone across the USA.
You're talking to a guy that was a road warrior for 20 years, and which is no badge of honor. Delta Diamond still, a platinum one American, because my whole career for 20 years was traveling to hundreds and hundreds of markets and working with local newspapers all over, not just in the US, but all over the world. And I worshiped that morning copy of USA Today outside of my hotel room. I mean, I was mostly a Hilton guy. I'm not saying Marriott sucks, but you know how you build those points. And it was always built into my morning. Is that this? I mean, after 40 years, most of your emphasis is on the reader, making the content accessible, brief to the point, all that and more. Who is your reader today? Is it still that affluent, educated, moving person? Or tell me who is the reader you're targeting today?
So it's interesting because we are now obviously primary digital. We have, around an average of 100 million unique visitors every month to USA Today, which is, pretty extraordinary.
Yeah.
In addition, we have a very healthy single copy and home delivery. The hotel deliveries is still part of our message, but it is a smaller portion, partly because of the pandemic and partly because other venues have grown so much. When we look at our digital readership, we're actually skew younger than many of our competitors, and we're really pleased about that. Of course, we want to serve all of our readers, but when you're looking at the future, looking at those younger readers who you become a news habit is important. So if you look at how we cover news and politics and the graphics and the entertainment news, and of course, USA Today sports, you can go to ComScore and look, we actually score higher on that 25 to 50-ish crowd than many of our competitors, which again, we're really pleased about. So when we look to our future, that is our core group. They're willing to pay for news. As you know, we've gone to a subscription model. They're interested in news. And they're consumers of our type of information. Again, that they want some things they want things broken down very clearly, and then they also want the opportunity to go deeper and in depth, and we provide both.
Well, okay, let's talk about some of those. The for you and the follow topics. I was doing a little due diligence before this. Well, thank you. I mean, I appreciate it. While I was having my 2 martinis before this, and I'm kidding. But one is a recommendation feature, and the other puts some of the control over the content in the reader's hands. Why is that an important balance in digital news today? Why is the user experience something that you're focusing on now like that? Is that in your opinion, this personalization where this media industry should be more involved in, or is it just one facet of USA Today?
Personalization is definitely a huge part of our future. So follow topics. When you come on USA Today, you can say, I'm interested in politics or Donald Trump or Hurricane Ian. And then that For You page, it'll aggregate all the things you're most interested in. So if you want a personalized homepage, you now have it both online and on our app. That is really important because there's a lot of news out there. And we're covering so much of it. It's a fire hose of news. And there's only so much real estate on your homepage or on your app screen, right? If you think about it. Like so many headline spots. So we do our best, and many people alike, to have that expert curation by editors. And some people want what they want. And so having that option of having an editor curated front or having a personalized front is really important to people.
Let's go back up now, if you don't mind, and change the topic and go up 30,000 feet and talk about the news publishing industry in general. There's a lot of discussion today about news deserts. And I know USA Today is not in that hyper local small town issue today. But one of the things going on currently as we have this dialogue, you and I, is Congress is debating whether or not to help compensate our industry, news publishing. That's how we define it at E&P. News publishing, in our opinion, someone who has to craft journalistic content. Two, find an audience for it. Three, monetize it. That's a news publisher, in our opinion. And we target our audience to C-suite executives in that space. But let's assume that in a Madisonian democracy, Congress does find a way for big tech to compensate us, or there are some tax breaks for you and the journalists you hire. Have you ever sat on a panel and had someone define what journalism is in an unfettered democracy? We don't give licenses for it. What makes a journalist, in your opinion, over a blogger? And how would you define what journalism should be today in the proper way to craft that content, if I may ask?
Sure. Well, I mean, just to make it clear, the issues before Congress right now are really just about getting, less regulation so we can negotiate with the big tech, and then tax breaks for certain hires or certain other things. So it's not like they're asking for cash from Congress. They're just, asking for some regulatory things that will help us succeed. And we're very much in support of that. I think it's very dangerous for government to decide who is a journalist. I don't, they shouldn't be in that business, but I do know that there are some things built into this different legislation that explains who is eligible for these tax credits and such. But it's more of a regulatory feature than defining what is a journalist, because that's ground we really don't want government involved in.
But what is, okay, so let's assume that we get some tax breaks, or there is compensation mandated from big tech to local journalism. How do you define that? How do you say this is journalism and this is just a blogger who's spouting off some conspiracy theory? Do we police ourselves as an industry? I mean, you are in charge of one of the major brands, you're a huge audience, you said. How do you feel we define that in our society?
I think it's dangerous territory to try it again for government to define what a journalist is. Personally, I think journalists are people who are working in the public interest. We are putting out facts, we are putting out information, we are there to inspire or entertain, but it's really, is your goal working in the public interest? And that's my personal definition of journalist.
All right. Okay. And we'll take that. Okay, so now I'm going to ask you a gotcha question. I hope you don't mind. And we can edit this out if you're upset. But Nicole, someone just threw you a whole mess of money to go take over a mid-market newspaper. Okay, you're going to be embedded in Altoona, Pennsylvania, or let's put you somewhere, just a nice mid-level market to run that brand, which is now failing. For some reason, the audience is failing. The advertising isn't what it used to be. An entrepreneur knows of your work, and you're now how would you instruct a newsroom today to survive in this weird world and engage that audience? I mean, I'm curious, and I know I didn't give you time to prep for this, but you're in the chair. How would you run that newsroom today?
I think you have to understand what your market wants and what resonates with them. We have so many digital tools now that allow us to do just that. We have to really listen to our audience. And so we know that they want economic development in the small towns. They want to know about jobs. They want to know things that will keep them and their families healthy. It's really a lot about, what people need to lead better, healthier, more productive lives. So if the smart newsrooms are listening to that, and they're making sure they provide that information. At the same time, we want to make sure that they get the big public interest news, that they may not be asking for, but we know that they'll want when they see it. Second, you've just got to be mobile first, just mobile first. Just if you're looking at your platforms, start with mobile and then let it go to desktop and then to print. But if you're not mobile friendly, if you're not looking at your stories and your headlines and your delivery through a mobile device, you're not going to win. And the third thing is, subscriptions. We know that the future of journalism is supported by the consumers, that with, the data privacy and the cookies going away and all the things that are happening in there, you just can't count on programmatic or mass distribution. You've got to get first party data. You need subscribers to help support your work. And I think if you make true connections with your community, the things we just talked about, if you're paying attention to what they want, if you're making it a conversation, if you're lifting up their voices, if they know you're truly in it for them, they will pay for that.
It's funny that you would mention that, because we just had an interview a few months ago in this program with Hearst, Connecticut. And we consider them one of the best at reader revenue right now, because they're just on fire. And one of the things the editorial team does is they get a little nerdy. And I think maybe I'm not trying to, but I sense a little nerd in you. Do you know what I mean? Like where you like the data. And what they do is they start their meetings every day going over data. Not that they govern the newsroom that way,
right,
but they want to, what the best advice I ever got as a radio broadcaster years ago was a gentleman who founded Top 40. I know you're too young for that, but eventually became Hot Hits. And his name was Mike Joseph. And I got advice from him because what he did is he did some research and basically decided that people wanted to hear the same records over and over again. Everybody said he was an idiot. And his advice to me was find out what they want and give it to them. Yeah. How important is that data to you when you're making the judgment calls on what to cover and what not to? Do you look at that daily?
Absolutely. We look at it hourly. We look at it by the minute. And again, it doesn't govern what we do, but it informs what we do. So we know, for example, we're looking at search terms and what people are actually searching for. So then we go and we answer those questions. We know how long they're spending on a story. We can test headlines on our homepage. Which type of headline is more engaging to the reader? So we're looking at that daily, and again, not daily, but hourly and by the minute. And we're going in and we're adjusting headlines, or we're adjusting the leads of the stories, or we're reprogramming the homepage and our mobile screens to be reactive to that. So data helps us so much. We are a data-informed newsroom. But again, you can't, data doesn't tell you what to do in breaking news, or data doesn't, help you understand which investigation that you need to go after for the public interest. So it's not everything, but it's a big part of what we do.
Okay, so once again, congratulations on 40 years of USA Today. I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but during that celebration, I was speaking at the International Newspaper Convention in, this is the group that, mostly the press guys, the operations guys, the international, it's a pretty big conference. It was in Newport, and Wayne Pelland, your VP of operations, was there, and we shared on his phone the 3-minute video, which we're going to have on. By the way, if you're listening to us in Spotify or Apple, go to editorandpublisher.com/vodcasts. You will see a link to it. With your permission, Nicole, I'm going to share this video, because this heritage is amazing, and and it's fun to see the old computers, right? And the people with that 70s look, with the sideburns and all. It's all trying to figure it out as they went. So now you're in the chair. Where do you see USA Today 40 years from now, if I may ask?
Yeah, we are leaning into our heritage of innovation. We were innovative 40 years ago. We still are today. So just this morning, we created out of Hurricane Ian a text chat where people could sign up for text about the hurricane, because some of them are getting cell service, but they're not getting internet, or they don't have power. And we're giving constant updates via text to the readers. And we were up to more than 5,000 people in about 24 hours who have signed up for that. So that's just a one small daily innovation we're doing to connect readers to the news they need exactly when they need it. We're leaning into virtual reality and augmented reality. We're looking, as we mentioned earlier, at personalization. We're continuing every single day, to talk about what do people need from us today and what's the best way to get it to them. So I think in that way, we're staying true to our heritage, that when they started 40 years ago, they really had the reader top of mind. They knew the reader wanted more vibrant, print newspapers. They wanted quicker to the point stories. So what does that mean for us over the next 40 years? Where will the technology take us? Where will the readers take us? But our commitment is absolutely there to continue that heritage.
It's funny because I look at USA Today and it reminds me a little bit of what we're doing at E&P. USA Today is a 40-year-old brand, and you're keeping it alive and vibrant. You're not having meetings saying, well, USA Today means print and we have to change it. You're polishing the brand. Am I right? Each and every day. So it stays like Disney, right? Disney, it still goes back to the mouse, but it just keeps evolving and growing and staying relevant. I have a 140-year-old brand and we have the same challenge. Do you keep that stodgy brand or do you just keep it alive and vibrant? You're never going to give up that brand, right? I mean, USA Today is your heart and soul and still the core of what you build all these things around. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And it's the USA Today network brings in, again, the 200 plus newspapers across the country. It's incredible competitive advantage. And people all the time talk about, you see some of the big national players trying to get more local. We're already there. That's right. What we're built on. So it's a huge competitive advantage. I do want to say also, as far as our future, it's not just the technology and the news, it's who's providing it. So we have a big priority of mine and our company is diversity of our newsrooms. We've made a commitment that by 2025, we want our newsrooms to reflect our communities. And it's different in different parts of the country. For USA Today, we want to reflect the nation. So, when you go back and look at some of those old videos that we talked about, you'll see a lot of men and a lot of white men around tables. And if you look at that table today, it looks far different. About 38% of our staff at USA Today are journalists of color, and we're continuing to make sure that our staff reflects the communities that we're trying to serve.
Nicole Carroll, President of News and Editor-in-Chief of USA Today. Congratulations on your 40-year anniversary. I know you're going to say it's not me, it's a team effort, but congratulations to the team at USA Today. We at E&P would like to stay in touch with you. We thank you for your valuable time and just keep up the good fight.
Thank you very much. Appreciate being here to share our team's story.